Well, hello, welcome or welcome back to my little fashion corner. The fashion week happened some time ago, and normally that's a pretty exciting time in my life for me. I get to dissociate from everything really, the economical situation, the geopolitics, the catastrophes, the injustices, and the global warming. And I get to watch all these designers and decide whether I love it or hate it. Well, hated is a strong word, but I get to decide whether I think it's good but wouldn't wear it, or I think it's good and I would wear it, or I just don't want it anywhere near my soul or wardrobe. Boringly, wearability is a big factor in my life. I spend so much time working that being able to wear fashions to work is something that is really important to me. There is the occasional cheeky splurge on something I know isn't massively functional, but I also want it. All that doesn't stop a girl from dreaming, and definitely doesn't mean all my purchases are completely utilitarian. This year was particularly tumultuous when it comes to creative director seats. I didn't really give it much thought, and I figured we'll just see how people settle in, how they are implementing their own ideas into the legacy of those houses that got them hired. Things were getting unexpectedly complicated. I disliked those that I previously liked. I continue to dislike those that I previously disliked. I continue to dislike brands even after they changed a creative designer. Looking at you, Christian Dior. And I like those that I previously didn't like. I also got extremely disappointed by Sean McGurr at McQueen. And then finally, after reading the news of Silvia Venturini Fendi leaving Fendi and Maria Grazia Chiuri becoming the new creative designer or director at Fendi, I thought I'd give up fashions for good and pick up talking about something a bit easier, like quantum computing. But then I got into the swing of watching all those runways, and suddenly, somehow, I had no idea what was going on. I was forced to kind of think about the fashions, think about what I'm seeing, and not just remember that I love Fendi. And I'm actually sort of challenged with, well, this is the stereotypes of what you like. How is it evolving? How are you not set in your ways? Which is extremely, extremely nice in 2025 when the world's on fire. So being able to focus on that was really nice. Now, spoiler alert, polka dots and animal prints are definitely in fashion, which are my least favorite prints, but I'll live. I will not be talking about Gucci, Valentino, Louis Vuitton, even McQueen, Dior from the big guys. Funnily enough, I will be talking about Chanel, a brand I used to glance over. I feel like that's enough for the starters, so join me in ignoring the world around me, and let's start with the obvious choice, shall we? Fendi. Now, for a very, very, very long time, Fendi was one of my top 3 brands, despite being owned by LVMH. Somehow, I've always enjoyed a majority of the collection clothes, accessories and shoes, both women's and men's, which in recent years were presented by Silvia Venturini Fendi and Mr. Kim Jones. Both now left the house. Kim Jones a lot earlier. He is now leading a high-end label called Ariel for a Chinese outerwear company called Bosideng. Sylvia left to chill, maybe? Maybe she'll have a cooking and traveling show, or Real Housewives of Milano. Earlier this year, was it this year? Yes, earlier this year, Fendi started showing women's wear and menswear together, which I think is a fabulous idea. I wonder why we haven't started doing that a lot earlier. This spring-summer 26 collection was, in my opinion, Fendi's best. Ever since I started making money, that is. The set looked beautiful, clothes were absolutely lovely, accessories were delightful. Honestly, probably my all-time favorite. After the show, internet boomed talking about the bags. They were so stunning, and I immediately informed the budget holder that we're getting a new bag. I also included a coat into the mix of budgeting, but I might swap it for 2 bags, or maybe a bag and a suit. We'll see. There were many of the classic peekaboo, spy bag, men's bag were featured heavily and were quite lovely. Weekenders, other top handle bags, and the beautiful woven totes. I think my favorite was the light pink mink peekaboo, which is definitely not happening for me. However, I love the concept, and I know I'd hate it in real life. Yeah, that's basically. I'm thinking this hot pink magenta peekaboo, I think it sways. It's gorgeous, stunning, 100% up my alley. And if these woven totes have a crossbody option, I'd like one of those as well. I suppose I'll have to wait and see. I love the clothes. I love a monochrome suit. I can absolutely see those in my wardrobe. And I think that these are pretty unisex, so I'm very happy to see them on traditional men and women runway. I also like the silken tops and skirts. The colors look so rich and so pigmented. Is that the right word to use when you're talking about fabrics? It was just very easy for me to get lost in this runway. Not a massive fan of those beads, beaded bags, beady clothes, but I do love the flower cutouts on shirts and coats, and I think that's a great touch. Anyway, as I said, Fendi did so well. What a massive loss letting Sylvia go. I was hoping that her daughter, Delphina, who is, I believe, the accessories director, was going to be ascending to the throne, which proved not to be the case, and it is what it is. Sylvia is such a loss to the brand. People often comment that designers are not designing for women, but I think she is truly designing for everyone. If you see her, she does not look like Vera Wang, so I think she is thinking of how clothes sit on your body and how to make you feel comfortable. Not always though. However, this show was definitely a great testament to her skills. Sylvia, because I know you're watching, I'll miss you. Ring me anytime you want to rant about Maria. Next up, Celine. I haven't been a massive Celine shopper. That's one of the brands that I always feel is cute but would not look cute on me for a variety of reasons. Michael Ryder, who's currently heading up Celine's creative, has me lukewarmly curious. Also, Jennifer Aniston wears a fair amount of Celine on the morning show, clothes and the bags, and that's influencing me greatly. This spring summer 26 was great. It was very well presented. It probably helped a ton that the weather rocked. Look at the nature, the wind, the set all together is just wonderful. You sort of see the clothes in the wild concrete jungle, and it helps you see it in more real life setting. I was particularly fond of the suits, I know, shocking. But the small detail of accessories and play with the color really gets me thinking this might be a space for me to watch. Michael dug up old bags designs and sort of revamped them. There was a lot of layering happening, which I love and seems to be in vogue for next year. And there was one piece of accessories that I really, really enjoyed. It was a hair thingy shaped like a safety pin. Love. Not long ago, I got a McQueen pin from Sean's first collection as a gift. I'm not sure how many safety pin shaped thingies I need. I think it's the punk teenager in me talking. I digress. I will most likely be looking into those shoes and trainers and palazzo trousers. Those are stunning. And maybe a cheeky little thick belt, because why not? Big up for Michael and his team. They really kicked names, and whilst they still remain in the spennier category in comparison to how much I like the clothes, I'm getting seriously tempted. We'll see. Bottega Veneta. I always forget that they're Italian for some reason. Louise Trotter's debut collection, she presented summer 26. Bottega and I go way back. It's always got a thing or two that I really want, but it's just way over my budget. I was gonna get some of the handbags, but never wanted them bad enough. I wanted to get some of the knitwear last year, but I just couldn't bring myself to it in the end. And here we are. Bottega is now driven by Louise, and I was really, really looking forward to it. When you think Bottega Veneta, you think leather. Good old Italian leatherwork, which was handsomely represented in this show, and there were some trends, patterns as well, tailoring, oversized clothes, fuzzy jackets, which are quite fun. Lots to look at for different cravings of different tastes, which traditionally always been Bottega. And all in all, I find the collection highly wearable. It makes me very happy. People often label these designers as, women designing for women, but you can see these clothes worn by everyone. I think Louise absolutely nailed her first show at Bottega Veneta, and it's such a vibe. What a collection for her and for the brand she's now leading. Extremely keen to see it in person, despite Bottega falling into the same category as Celine, that tous penny bucket. And here we are, one of the brands I spent years ignoring quite comfortably, Chanel.
Are you wearing the
Chanel boots? Yeah, I am.
Mathieu Blasi, I still haven't looked up how to read his name, debuted his collection, and I hope he's happy. The set looked absolutely stunning, love me a space theme, and it was so beautifully done. I'm a sucker for good stage work. It's what I appreciate about OG sci-fi movies, Now we've got clever CGI, and that's great. Back in my days, back then peeps had to build elaborate sets to make it as realistic as possible. They had to work the lighting, and I dig it. And here you can see it happening again, and I digress. Similarly to Balenciaga, some internet rovers commented this collection was extremely boring. One same design in 5 different colors, but I think majority of fashion observers sided with Mathieu and is very, very happy how wearable and new this is. It was a lot of Chanel, just different. It didn't feel stuffy, it didn't feel uncomfortable, it looked very flowy and chic. Karl Lagerfeld's Chanel was very la-di-da. I think he was very much about the things that Coco Chanel was about. And Virginie Viard, she definitely tried to continue that narrative. But this runway really showed Chanel in a different light, showing that Mathieu has his own personality and is not really keen just to redo the same using posh tweed and boucles. I didn't get a great look at the shoes, and what I saw I still didn't like. Some of the things were a bit more odd for fancier people than myself, but those cohorts, the play with big skirts and casual tops, I love the pencil skirts with the thick belt and a very high slit. Those are incredible. There was a lot of red happening, and whilst I don't love red, I feel too seen in red, I enjoyed this. So I don't have to say it because I'm not saying this on the account of handbags, but I like Chanel. I'm keen to see this person. I want to see how wearable this actually is, and I wouldn't mind one of those slit skirts or the top with the back slit. Love a slit. Moving right along, Tom Ford. Fairly new to the house, I believe he debuted his first collection earlier this year in March, Hader Ackerman. The show was absolutely amazing. The camera work was fabulous, so forgive me for the lazy cut. Definitely go watch it in full on their website or here on YouTube. Tom Ford has always been a bit provocative, a bit skin tight, a bit of, skin showing, but there's always thinking, who would get this? Where do you possibly go besides a kinky dungeon to wear this? There's always play with colors, play with materials. One of my favorite things is Tom Ford's silk suits, and then it's Tom Ford's velvet suits. Not only this show has amazing creative direction, but all the clothes just flows. Surely there are pieces that I wouldn't wear, and I would argue that wouldn't be popular or deemed beautiful if not presented on a very slim model. However, majority of the collection is just blowing my mind. Love the combination of fabrics. I love a good skirt. I love a pink shirt. Coats, strong colors, monochrome or prints. Absolutely incredible are the deep blue silk suits with the funky lapels and collars. I kind of admire cheeky lace and sheer fabrics. I'm kind of into it. I don't know if I would feel comfortable wearing it in public, but it's a total vibe. The colors in this collection are absolutely stunning, even the orange. I'm super impressed. I will have to check the price tags on them suits because there's a strong chance that one of them might happen. Coming in strong to represent Australia, Zimmermann. Zimmermann is one of the brands I tend to tag pretty easily. It's flowers, it's flowy fabrics, it's flared trousers, puffy sleeves, ruffles, layered ruffles. Basically nothing I'd wear. And yet, I tend to gravitate towards the brand quite heavily. I just want to be able to pull it off. But a 5'11" pale young lady in a really flowery dress, waltzing her way through the corporate America of technology, not really sure. It gives me a bit more anxiety than I would like. Maybe when we finally move again and I live in a warmer climate, I'll get cast on Real Housewives of Melbourne and get to wear a ton of Zimmermann. Anyway, Zimmermann was probably the weakest of those brands I was excited about. But again, there were little things that I really liked. Orange suit with the shorts. Whilst I do not understand the concept, I love how that looks. I'd like the vest. The massive flared trouser suit, those are absolutely stunning. I'm just jealous that people get to wear it outside and they feel comfortable in it and they don't feel like everyone is looking at them. I'll have to think about it, but I can see it. Do you know what? Every year, I think this is the year that I get a fun summer suit from Zimmermann, maybe a dress. So is 2026 finally my year? Next up, a brand that I deem severely underappreciated, Nina Ricci. Because I don't always get to talk about Nina Ricci, here goes a little history of the brand. Founded in 1932 as an haute couture brand by Nina Ricci, who was an Italian-born French lady, and her son Robert. A few very interesting things about them. After WW2, they've orchestrated Théâtre de la Mode. By they, I mean Robert and Lucien Lelong, who was a prominent haute couturier at that time and a president of the Chambre syndicale de la couture, and also a mentor to Christian Dior. Théâtre de la Mode was a miniature theatre of fashion showed in Paris in 1945 and consisted of around 150 mannequins that were about a third of the size of a human, so average English height, dressed and styled by leading fashion houses of the time. Nina Ricci, Jean Lanvin, Madeleine Framont, Hermes, Pierre Balmain, Balenciaga, many others. The idea was to raise funds for war survivors and also to help the world of fashion post-war. Wars, really. It was a Parisian exhibition, but after its success, they toured Europe, in London, Leeds, yes, the Louis Capaldi Leeds.
Leeds, what the fuck are you playing at?
Barcelona, Stockholm, Copenhagen and Vienna. And after that, the mannequins were outfitted with clothes for the next season, and in 1946 were shipping off to not Boston but New York City and San Francisco, to then return to Paris. And in 1952, the Maryhill Museum of Art in State Washington were donated the collection by Alma de Bretteville Spreckels, a wealthy socialite, philanthropist, and an art patron from San Francisco. A few of the pieces were lost in the process, but the rest was preserved. In 1988, Musée de la Mode et du Textile in Paris and the Maryhill Museum of Art restored the mannequins' clothes and recreated the sets with great detail. The Théâtre de la Mode still exhibits at the Maryhill Museum and also tour art and fashion museums throughout the United States and worldwide. You can read more about it online. I could go on and talk about Nina Ricci designing several flight attendants' uniforms and a bit more about the history, but maybe I'll just leave it for a fashionably short video, specifically on Nina Ricci. Back to 2026 showing of their spring-summer collection in the halls of La Sorbonne University. Harris Reed, the creative director, he is so good. He also went to Central St. Martin's and designs just fun clothes. I came across the brand about a million years ago reading Cosmo Girl or something like that. The name sounded so cool and I thought it was just so glamorous. I thought this show just fun. Fun clothes. No one looked like they cannot breathe, like they cannot walk. There were different fabrics, gorgeous rich colors, animal print or polka dots. There was just enough for everyone. The velvet skirt suit with a lace cami top. Yep, it can sound pretty plain, but it totally works. Long, high-waisted skirts with bra tops, stunning. Black paneled met dress with gorgeous belt, very Taylor Momsen vibes. And if you're what Harry Styles is often sporting, these playful clothes with a 70s vibe, go have a look. You might be very surprised to see what Harry Reid showed. Next up, Rick F. Owens, the Fashion Group International Rule Breaker Award winner of 2007, and he is just that. He's designing in between the lines. He has this signature black and grey stress style. He loves a platform shoe, and I find it very difficult to label him. I just know a bunch of people that like the punk aesthetic, a little bit of an Iggy Pop vibe, and I always make sure to tell them about Rick Owens. He should be a lot more mainstream, but I think maybe that's part of his charm. He has about 5,000 different labels, and yet he's not that mainstream. This show is the menswear, and he made them this little obstacle course, which must be fun in those platform shoes. Swimming and this controlled diving was also involved. I wonder if they had to have a lifeguard on duty. His show is a lot more theatrical. It's a bit difficult to figure out the clothes in general because you see it in a very specific manner, but he's just keeping his vibe, you know. He's working with loads of leather, distressed fabrics, sheer and mesh fabrics. He loves mesh. Now, Rick Owens could be your I'm looking for something completely different, or you just quit your job and going to go for your own punk rock career. For me, it's not a brand that I'd outfit myself in head to toe. However, there are always things I like, and I would like for others to wear it more, if possible. So go, let me live vicariously through you. Moving along to Yohji Yamamoto. There was no way I could cut it down in a respectful manner and keep the vibe, so forgive me, Father, for patching it together like an early ages YouTube content creator. Yamamoto is a master tailor, Japanese designer who, fun fact, has a degree in law, but learned the craft in his mother's shop. He picked up tailoring and did way too well, if you ask me. You can tell that he holds Japanese culture and design very dearly, and the influence is always there. You can always spot his designs. He's got his main label, men's and women's, but also side labels like Y3, his ongoing collaboration with Adidas, that can be found a lot cheaper than his mains. Yohji Yamamoto's pieces are made often black and white cuts, oversized, elaborate handcrafting, very cool kid street style. Back to the show. It's all quirky, but highly wearable. Plaid made it in, which made me really happy. I always appreciate that. Many gorgeous dresses, tops and bottoms, which kind of covers the entire spectrum. Hopefully you get me. Some of the pieces look like they got random cut bits in layers on top of it, but it somehow works. I don't know. It gives the clothing this 3D aspect without being unflattering. I wouldn't go top to bottom, as I said, similarly to Rick Owens, but I see people making it work. Even for work. Towards the end, there was a beautiful nod to Giorgio Armani, who sadly passed not long before the fashion week, and it was very moving. The show didn't finish with a traditional défilé. There was more of a theatrical moment. However, it was absolutely epic. Calling on Japanese drawings and those red capes gave it a really, really beautiful touch. To give us all some joy, here is him taking a bow, which is the cutest thing I've seen all month, and I've seen some pretty cute doggo videos. I would definitely encourage you to go and watch the whole thing. It's very beautiful, it's very calm, it's very artsy, and if you haven't heard of Yohji Yamamoto before, this is your sign to go down that rabbit hole. And here we are talking about Balenciaga. You know how excited I was for this, and my goodness am I happy. I've seen this one dress on the red carpet somewhere, on someone, I don't know, but it's so good to see Pierpaolo's work again. I feel so much better, and I'm pretty certain he cares. Lots to look at, and many already commented on the boring of it all. The Balenciaga Reddit just talking about how this is not, you know, the hoodies and the sneakers that they just want to wear. Yep, no, got it. I'll be happily bored with Pierpaolo at the helm. Firstly, I think it's a very universally wearable. Sure, it's not the destroyed hoodies and trainers, but their colors, different fabrics, different styles, textures, and there's a lot of charisma. Sarah Mauer of Vogue interviewed him, and he said he was inspired by the sack dress of 1957 Cristobal Balenciaga. And he chose it because its radical, straight up and down simplicity that was an outrage at the time when most women were stuck in the corseted Christian Dior new look style of 10 years earlier, he says. And you can absolutely see it. He also wasn't really hiding from what his predecessors brought to the table. There were, you know, bizarrely large sunnies and headpieces and a little bit of futurism, proper tailoring. He was sort of tying all the knots together, and I'm very excited to see this in person. I'm extremely keen to get more of not just suits for work, so this is great. And in general, this is great because I'm very happy the snow globe of fashion got shaken this vigorously and we finally got all these changes. So far, I'm enjoying not liking the brands I used to like and liking those that I used to glance over because it's really, really refreshing. We were set in our ways of this is what Gucci looks like, this is what Chanel looks like, and it was quite boring. I think if we needed something for 2026 to keep me distracted, it was the vigorous snow globe shake. Tom Brown. I talk about Mr. Tom Brown often, but not often enough. I think we woke up one day and the world was full of weirdo grey suits, cute cardies, and doggy handbags. I'm not against any of that. In fact, I'm trying to force more of Tom Brown on my family. Why they are resisting that, I thought, is beyond me. One thing I really like about Tom Brown is the end of his fashion. He usually traipses straight over to his partner Andrew and gives him a little gift. It's quite adorable to see him giggle all the way through. Gorgeous. Spring Summer 26 was very alien encounters. I love me some Tom Brown, and I've always looked at his clothes as easy office outfits. Lots of good shirts, good cardies, as well as trousers or skirt suits. I was never too keen on the shoes or bags. Every designer always has looks I'm not very fond of. I can't see anyone in the real world wearing them. But then I remember that those things are for the rich and people who go places by car exclusively and who don't really traipse through the real life like I do. Dissociate. I love the colors. I think the minty pea green is gorgeous. It's very adequate even for rainy places such as London. And I'm not exactly certain if I want my suit ready made for the Kraken. Again, I have to remind myself that this is not made for me. It's probably made for red carpet. And my work doesn't always roll out the red carpet for me, which is outrageous. That said, I feel like this is a 50-50 yes to no collection. If you are like me, happily browsing, trying to pick out things from different designers, you're good to go. Skirt suits, gorgeous. I really do love the pleats that Tom Brown is always playing with, the different fabrics and the prints. As a concept, as a brand, it's a solid brand that I like to browse because I will eventually find something I like and I want to incorporate into the daily wardrobe. Another weakling, forgive me, etro. Hear me out. I do want to include etro because it is weird. More often than not, they do crazy colors, fabulous prints, and I'm just worried that choosing this collection to talk about etro might not have been my smartest move, but I'm committed. This is the vibe that I'm getting. Remember early seasons Kyle Richards Umansky, like season 1, kaftan wearing Kyle, back when she had her own personality? A shitty one, sure, but at least she tried. I feel like etro is what she would be wearing if she continued to grow that way. It's weird, it's kitschy, and it's tempting me to pull it off. You know, bizarrely all these spikes and studs and fringes and tassels are somewhat cool. I think the lighting of the set and the set design didn't do it much justice. I think a concrete jungle or a bit more nature would help a ton. It was this sort of like a dungeon club lighting. But whenever they send down the pattern suits, that's where my ears really perk up because I think those are really, really good gateway into etro as well as Pucci. But this is definitely a collection that I would like to see in person because I don't think it really does it any justice to see it on a very slim body just traipsing along from far distance on a camera. I think it would be greater if polka dots were not trending now, but that's what we're working with nowadays. Anyway, I just wanted to put it out there in case this is your vibe and you haven't really heard about etro before. Mrs. Gabriella Hearst. This collection was inspired by tarot, and all of something called the major arcana were represented. I'm not a tarot person, if you couldn't tell. That will never stop me from watching fashions. Interestingly, 97% of the collection's wovens and 83% of its overall production was coming from dead stock fabrics from previous seasons, and I love that. Love sustainability. Gabriella has always been big on philanthropy and promoting, saving the planet and people living on it. This collection opened with Laura fucking Dern, who is absolutely gorgeous, first and foremost, and wearing a dress embellished with 2,400 handcrafted leather flowers. Just stunning. The rest of the collection was a lot of extremely well-fitted clothes. Dresses with thick straps, which I love. I was about 12 when I read in Teen Vogue that those are going to make me look less fat, my broad shoulders more feminine, and my chest more developed. So naturally, I am now broken into thinking that I like thick straps. And clearly those years of therapy are paying well off. Gabriella, she loves a good silhouette. I'm loving these, skinny decorative belts, helping to promote that I have a shape narrative in my own head. The collection really goes into colors, but there's also lots of monochrome happening, which is very calming, I believe. I think monochrome looks are really, really calm. And again, not sure what is happening to me, but these tassely fringes with golden metal thingies at the end, which is the technical term, glorious. I thought the dresses and playing with the capes and long sleeves, hoods and cutouts, that was very clever. It looks very snazzy and very flowy. I just have a soft spot for suede, so I think it really flows beautifully. I mean, what can I say? She got me good. Uma Wang. Uma Wang is a Chinese designer, and she's been leading her eponymous brand since 2005. Presented her Spring-Summer 26 in Paris at Musée des Arts et Métiers, and I am loving the vibe. The museum gives it this beautiful, moody vibe. The clothes starts off very June couture, and it completely stole my heart. I have nowhere to wear this, but I'm coming up with all these scenarios in my head. I'm going to the June premiere first and foremost with Katya. Then it goes into creams and whites, and by that point I am completely lost cause because I love a cream, love a light colored fabric, love a white suit, anything. The clothes have the cleanest, simplest vibe. The pattern suits and the shirts with the pleated collar, double colored sunglasses, rims, metallics. I love metallics. I absolutely adore metallics. It's shiny and I will want it, which is pretty much the standard with Asian designers, I feel. It doesn't feel too traditionally feminine. I would call it unisex. I would call it extremely wearable, and I would call it extremely gorgeous. If you haven't heard about Uma Wang, or you're looking to wear a designer that does great tailoring but isn't a mainstream name, that might be your call. And I trust we are closing with Hermes women's wear. If you haven't expected Hermes from me, I get it. Do I love their bags? Not dying for a Birkin or Kelly. I am mostly very happy with the rest, meaning ready-to-wear shoes and accessories. I love Hermes shoes. I don't love the orange sandal. I love their accessories. I don't like their classic twillies. I love their ready-to-wear. There is just a caveat. Unfortunately, Hermes is an equestrian brand, a horse brand. So that means the theme often makes it into the prints and patterns, which if you're not a rider, if you're not a horse person, might not be your vibe. When Hermes is good, it's good. So let's get into it. Leather. Lots of leather, which is a vibe. Yes, there are many elements that have that ridery vibe, but unless you go straight up for jumping boots, it's workable. You've got well-fitted leather, which is extremely sexy. Anyway, we've got that sorted. Now look, I love a crop top. I love that crop tops are trending. I am so ready for this. And if you're thinking Hermes is this quiet luxury, the leather trousers and bra will probably not fit into that narrative, but the collection is so fun. You'll find a lot of beautiful patterns, lots of red. Red is probably in vogue for 26. Lots of monochrome outfits, lots of shorts, crop tops, but also gorgeous fitting coats, casual and kind of rich looking. These toned down looks are then contrasted with these cheeky, sexy elements from like leather workshops, so these buckles and harnesses and these short shorts. So it has a really great flow. I really hope people get into this because it's gorgeous. Also, if you are into those Adidas trainers that got so popular last year or a year before, the Sambas, designer of them, Grace Wells-Bonner, is joining Hermes to be the menswear creative director. Her own label has always been extremely fun. I'm really looking forward to see what's in Hermes men's future. Now, in all seriousness, I could go on. I could just go and do a recap of every brand. There's so many brands that continuously deliver more good than crazy, and some that continue not to interest me. I wanted to talk about those that I liked and those that are bringing a little bit more personality to the table. As I said, I didn't do McQueen. It was just a massive disappointment to me. I have to have faith that when I see it in the boutique, it will be better. Right now, it just wasn't me, so I don't know. I just hope that when I see it in person, it's gonna be better. So I think that's it. I think that's me signing off. Thanks for sticking with me to the very end. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I needed a break from the world of it all, and I hope that you got one as well. I'll see you in the next one when the world of fashion drags us into another great distraction. Bye!